Hi and welcome, I'm Andy Miuch and you are watching Context. In just a few days ahead and following the second round of direct peace talks with Russia, Ukraine pulled off a string of major military operations. The Spiderweb op saw a series of coordinated drone attacks on air bases deep in Russian territory. Kyiv claimed that the unprecedented operation of launching drones on the bases from within Russia was over a year in the making and had resulted in a third of Russia's strategic bomber fleet being destroyed or damaged. The peace talks that followed saw Moscow and Kyiv exchange documents on their views on how to end the war. A day later, Ukraine claimed responsibility for an underwater explosion targeting the pillars of the Kerch Bridge connecting Russia to the illegally annexed Crimean Peninsula. Meanwhile, Russia continued its aerial assaults on Ukrainian cities. On the escalation amid fragile negotiations, optics and strategic impact of recent far-reaching operations, we're talking with Professor and Coordinator of International Studies at the State University of New York, Ivani Vasoler, and Yulia O'Connell of the Dignitas Ukraine, also joining from New York. Welcome, thank you so much for being here. Let's start with the Spiderweb. Ukraine says it hit 41 military aircraft across Russia, some of them thousands of kilometers from the border. The op, including the smuggling and positioning of the drones for the attack on Moscow's strategic air capabilities, was in the works for over a year and a half, according to Kyiv. Ivani, what do you make of it?
It was a spectacular attack, it seems, based on the analysis that we see here in the United States. According also to the press reports, the government of the United States says that the government didn't know about these attacks. And this represents a great dilemma for the United States and for perhaps any other country, because this is a new type of war, is the war with drones. Drones that, based on the literature, they are not so easy detectable. And so any country could be attacked with drones. The U.S. Representative for Ukraine, that is the General Kit Kellogg, he, in an interview with Fox News here in the United States, he stated that what happened, these attacks, Ukraine attacks on Russian territory, including Crimea, increases enormously the risk of an escalation in the war. So he predicts the possibility of a worsening of the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. So the situation is critical, and we don't have a clear response from the United States at this moment.
Exactly, as you said, the envoy Kellogg did say that risk levels are going, quote, way up. Yulia, notably, we haven't heard from either the US President Donald Trump directly or Russian President Vladimir Putin. Obviously, the operation took Moscow by surprise. The White House says the US President was also not informed. But why would you say that Trump hasn't reacted?
Well, President Trump is trying to process what's going on and calculate his reaction. We believe that he thought it could be solved within 24 hours or within a week or within his own relationship with President Putin. That didn't happen. So now Kellogg also said that he is presented with much more complicated situation that he ever thought, he ever believed. So he needs to actually get a lot more knowledge of what's going on. That Ukrainian community in the United States is doing a lot to get his ears so So he understands that that situation, that it's not a simple one. And today, the existence of Ukraine and existence of Russia is almost interdependable. So Russia doesn't see themselves existent with sovereign and prosperous and democratic Ukraine, just like Ukraine doesn't seem to see its existence because of the Russian attacks and the Russian full-scale invasion, while Russia is existing in today's borders, while its empire is trying to subjugate Ukraine. And that's an existential kind of problem for both of the countries. Not obviously, Russia could have a ton of land, a lot of people, and they could actually give Ukraine a loan, but they're not doing it. Their regime is not doing it. The propaganda is so strong that Russian people don't believe that Ukraine should exist or exist as an independent country. So it's a very, very complicated problem how you stop the war. Not to mention that Russia put their economy on the war machine, and it's inertia right now. It's very hard to stop. It's like the train that moves in a high speed. That itself very hard to stop.
Back to the
Trump
operation itself. We'll delve into that a bit later. Back to the operation itself. Ivani, besides the military aspect, of course, how much would you say that this was a diplomatic move by Kiev to reinvigorate its allies and point out the weaknesses in Russia's defense structure?
Apparently was this way, precisely the way that you state. So we had the talks in Istanbul that essentially led to nowhere except for an exchange of prisoners exchange between the two countries. But from that meeting in Turkey, nothing really new came out, and the prospects of ending the war, it seems far, far and far. We don't have anything about the possibility of ceasefire. Apparently, this now is out of the picture, ceasefire, and the peace agreement that the Kremlin was looking for also is not possible, obviously not, because the demands are demands that Ukraine would never accept. So Ukraine, I think, is trying to, in certain ways, to motivate the allies to continue with the help, with the assistance, so Ukraine can go ahead with the conflict. But it's a terrible conflict going on to its year number 4. And the most recent numbers, although very difficult to calculate, is that at least 1,500,000 soldiers, considering both sides, have lost their lives or are gravely wounded as a result of the conflict. So the losses are immense.
When we're talking about the Monday round of the peace talks, the Russians did present their demands. They demand the Ukrainian withdrawal from 4 regions and abandonment of its NATO bid. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky today called that an ultimatum. Yulia, do you think the strikes that preceded the negotiations in Istanbul will impact any further rounds, and how?
Well, any advances or any steps on the battlefield influence the negotiations. And the spiderweb operation is unprecedented. No one in the world have seen that. So it's definitely going to influence. The only question is what kind of negotiations. Russia put on the table plan of surrender. They put on the table, giving away all 4 regions, demilitarization, denazification, everything that we've heard from the very beginning. So it's not peace talk, it's stalling of the time. So Russia is doing very classical. They stall the time. They're not ready or not willing to do any kind of ceasefire, any kind of real negotiations. What Ukraine is doing right now is showing the rest. It's super important how we affected Russia and their capabilities to send rockets onto Ukrainian land, that because some of their airplanes were damaged that doing exactly that. But most importantly, we're showing right now the United States, President Trump, that Ukraine has a plan. We are capable of doing things that no one in the world have done. It's a military. We're doing the military targets, and we have cards. As Ukraine has cards, as President Trump didn't believe Ukraine does. So it's very important not only to show Russia what Ukrainian special forces and military can do, but to show the rest of the world that support that we're getting right now from the Europe has to be matched with the support from United States. And action has to be done, and President Trump should be a lot more decisive moving forward.
Speaking of cards, as Trump once put it, Ukraine Security Service yesterday claimed responsibility for an attack on the bridge linking Russia to Crimea with underwater explosives. The Kremlin said there was no damage to the bridge. Ivani, do you see this attack as a continuation of what started with Spiderweb, and do you expect the Ukrainians to put some more cards on the table?
Apparently, yes. This is the idea. The same way that these most recent attacks took place, it's possible that Ukraine will continue. As my colleague just said in this panel, President Zelensky and Ukraine government show that they do have cards still to play in this conflict. And now Ukraine, I think, is waiting for a response. So NATO is having its meetings this week in Belgium, Brussels, and there is their U.S. delegation. And the expectation is to see what the Secretary of Defense, U.S. Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, is going to make some comments about the current situation. What is remarkable, though, is that for the first time since the Biden administration created the Ukraine Defense Committee, that is a NATO group to precisely focus on assistance to Ukraine. Since this committee was created about 3 years ago, this is going to be the first time that the United States is not going to participating of the meeting for this committee, the Ukraine Defense Committee. Peter Hegseth is going to be in Brussels to participate of the NATO meetings, but not particularly of this committee. So the message is unclear about what the United States is saying in the moment that the Secretary of Defense is avoiding his presence in this defense committee for Ukraine.
As the meetings in Brussels are about to get underway, they're going to be co-hosted by Britain and Germany since U.S. stepped down from that chairing position. London has announced that it will multiply its drone production by 10 times in order to assist Ukraine as well as build its own national defenses. Yulia, Ivani said at the start of this conversation that this proves to be more and more proves to be a drone war. That drones would be a decisive factor here. Do you agree? And how much of a help would London's drones be?
So it's actually an excellent question. Of course, we are seeing right now the drones are making playing a very different role that they played in the beginning of the war. But actually, United Kingdom, they declared the new war doctrine. And the new war doctrine looks like 20-40-40, which is what means it's 20 for the heavy weapons, 40% for the reconnaissance drones, and 40% for the lethal drones. So the United States, United Kingdom military doctrine now different. And just by saying 20-40-40 and 80% going into the drones, it just shows that how well they recognize the drones are the the game changer, the major force right now on the battlefield. And they are working very closely with Ukrainians to understand how the drone warfare is happening, because one thing is to have drones, another thing is to know how to operate them, and not just a joystick, is how strategically to all the parts of the all the parts of the presented on the battlefield has to be interchanged, collaborated, and work together. So United Kingdom is from the democratic world is leading the way, and we only can be proud and be happy for that. We would wish that United States was just as agile as United Kingdom, but United States seems to be a little behind at this point in understanding and adapting for the new challenges of the new type of war.
Let's go back to the peace negotiations for a minute. Ukraine says it's waiting for a response on the proposal Kyiv put forward in Istanbul on Monday. Ivani, what are your thoughts on the current format of the negotiations? Do you believe any substantial progress besides the prisoner swaps can be achieved, or would it have to be a face-to-face between either Zelensky or Trump on one side and Putin on the other?
Well, it would be good if the presidents could meet, but we don't see this as a possibility right now. So this was the second round of negotiations, and pretty much like the first, didn't produce significant results. So the expectation, and this was one of the intentions of Ukraine, is precisely to have a meeting at a very high level between the presidents. President Trump had said that he would be in Istanbul, but in the end, because the other presidents were not there as well, so President Trump also skipped the second meeting in Istanbul. It would be ideal to have direct talks between the heads of state, but we don't see. The situation is like in an impasse now. And again, as Kit Kellogg mentioned, as a result of the recent attacks from Ukraine in Russia, the situation tends to become worse.
Yulia, I would like to hear your thoughts on this. Do you believe that the current format and the level of delegations that are negotiating in Istanbul could make some progress towards ceasefire?
I don't think so. We've seen that, again, the ceasefire should start with the willingness of Russia to, and they are not willing to do ceasefire, unconditional ceasefire. Ukraine proposed unconditional ceasefire. Russia is not agreeing to unconditional ceasefire. Russia, the biggest problem, and I'd like as many people as possible to understand, the biggest problem is that Putin believes that he can win the war. So ceasefire and peace talks doesn't make sense for him right now. He believes that he has military capabilities. He believes that he is understanding the drone warfare and it's not fully baseless because Russian drones, they are, they scaled up the production, they scaled up the training. They actually right now not in a position they were a year ago with the drone warfare. So he believes he has cards to continue the war and win the war. That's the biggest thing that, before we sit down and talk about ceasefire, should understand. They believe they can win the war. Ceasefire doesn't make sense for Russia. Even though Ukraine is willing to show the Trump that's we're ready for peace talk, and because President Trump wants that. He wants to see it out of all costs. Ukraine is willing, but that's not reality. And unless politicians at a high level in United States, in Europe seems understanding of that, unless Trump and his administration fully understand that, ceasefire only possible if Ukraine is militarized more, if Ukraine is given more military support, because the battles are not won by the words, they are won by the military actions. And Ukraine needs support in the military actions. This is how you put people at the table to negotiate.
Well, Kiev is, as you mentioned already earlier, accepted the American proposed 30-day unconditional ceasefire. Kiev and its allies are saying that Vladimir Putin is stalling this process. We can remember back at before the first round of the direct negotiations, we could hear that Putin is making a theater here. Ivani, do you think this is all a theater? Is Putin just stalling, thinking that he could win this?
If it's a theater, it's very difficult to say. One of the things that we learn when we study international relations, that one of the reasons for war and one of the most challenging aspects of international relations, the relations among nations, is precisely to figure out the intentions of the countries. Countries never know the intentions of other countries. They can know many things. They can have intelligence officers, so the so-called spies. They can try to figure out, and they may learn something, but the true intentions are very difficult. So it's difficult to say, but yes, I think we have to understand that Russia believes that can win and will win this war. That Russia, according to the view from the government, is in condition to win the war. And Russia made progress, so to speak, inside Ukraine, relative progress, obviously, and is not willing to give up.
Well, thank you both so much for joining us and sharing your insights and opinions. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. That's all we had for you in this edition of Context. Do stay tuned to A News.